He wasn't a CEO, a manager, or even someone the company noticed. He was just the cleaner, quiet, invisible, expected to stay in the background. But one ordinary day, a single phone call changed everything. What started as a simple mistake turned into a moment that exposed both prejudice and power. Because when he picked up that call, he didn't just answer a phone. He stepped into a fight he was never supposed to win. The question is, whose empire did he really save? Marcus had always been the man no one noticed. Each morning he arrived before dawn, mop in hand, making sure the office floors gleamed before the powerful men in suits showed up. To them, he was just the cleaner, a shadow moving silently in the background. But Marcus took pride in his work. It was honest, steady, and it helped keep food on the table for his family. Still, in the polished glass towers he cleaned, he often felt invisible. The executives passed him without a glance, their conversations about million-dollar deals floating above his head as if he didn't exist. He had grown used to it, used to being overlooked, underestimated, and dismissed. Yet on that day, when he stepped into the empty boardroom and noticed a phone ringing on the billionaire CEO's desk, Marcus didn't realize he was about to step out of the shadows. One decision, one call, would force the world to see him in a way it never had before. Marcus hesitated as the phone continued to ring. Normally, he would have ignored it. He knew his place, knew the unspoken rules of staying invisible. But something about the urgency of the call pierced through the silence of the boardroom. Against every instinct telling him not to, he picked it up. On the other end was a voice, confused, urgent, foreign. The caller asked for the CEO directly, their words layered with the kind of pressure Marcus had never heard before. He tried to explain that he wasn't the man they wanted, but the caller pressed on, mistaking him for an assistant. It was a conversation about contracts, millions at stake, and a client threatening to walk away if answers didn't come immediately. Marcus's heart raced. He wasn't supposed to be here. He wasn't supposed to know these things. Yet his years of listening in the background, cleaning around meetings that never acknowledged him, had taught him more than anyone realized. He knew the client's concerns. He had overheard negotiations. He remembered details. Because when you're invisible, you become a quiet observer. But here was the danger. Stepping in could change everything, and not necessarily in his favor. If he said the wrong thing, he'd be blamed for overstepping. If he said nothing, the company could lose its biggest client. And Marcus knew exactly how the CEO would see it, a black cleaner daring to speak in the language of billion-dollar deals. It would be seen as insolence, not initiative. Still, something inside him pushed back against the fear. For once, he wanted to be more than just a shadow. He steadied his voice and offered a solution, clear, precise, and based on everything he had quietly absorbed. The line went silent. For a moment, Marcus thought he had made a terrible mistake. Then the client responded, calmer now, asking questions, listening carefully. By the time the call ended, the crisis had been diffused. Marcus had saved a deal that executives twice his age couldn't hold together. But he didn't feel triumphant. Instead, a cold weight settled in his chest. Because in this world, victories for people like him often came with a cost. And that cost was about to arrive. When the CEO stormed into the office minutes later, Marcus barely had time to step back from the phone. The man's face was red with fury, not relief. Instead of gratitude, there was only rage. Rage that someone like Marcus had dared to step into his world. "Who told you to touch that phone?" The words weren't spoken aloud, but they hung heavy in the air, visible in every glare, every clenched fist. The executives gathered behind him stared too, their silence a weapon sharper than any words. Marcus tried to explain. He spoke of the crisis, of the client ready to walk, of how he had managed to calm the storm. But the more he spoke, the more their disbelief hardened into contempt. It didn't matter that he had saved the company millions. What mattered, what they saw, was that a black cleaner had crossed an invisible line. The CEO's decision was swift, cold, and cruel. Marcus was accused of overstepping, of jeopardizing the company's reputation. He was told he had no place in conversations that weren't meant for him. Within moments, his years of quiet service were reduced to nothing. His badge was taken, his name erased from the payroll. And yet, just as the humiliation pressed hardest against his chest, something unexpected happened. The same client Marcus had spoken to, the one whose trust he had saved, called back. This time, not asking for the CEO, but for him. The room froze. Every suit turned to stare. The man they had dismissed, fired, discarded, was now the only one the client wanted to hear from. For Marcus, it was the most terrifying, electrifying moment of his life. Because in that instant, he wasn't just fighting for a job, he was fighting for the right to be seen. Marcus never returned to that office as a cleaner. The CEO's pride wouldn't allow it, and the company quickly replaced him with someone who wouldn't dare cross the invisible lines. But something had shifted. The client's call made it clear. Marcus's voice carried value. His knowledge, his presence, his worth. For once, people who had ignored him were forced to see what they had worked so hard to overlook. Yet the sting of injustice lingered. He had saved a multi-million-dollar deal, only to be punished for daring to act outside the role society had assigned him. His story wasn't just about a phone call or a contract. It was about a system that thrives on invisibility, where those who clean the floors are expected never to stand at the table, no matter how much they know or how much they contribute. Marcus's life moved forward, but the memory of that moment followed him. It became a reminder of both his strength and the bitter cost of being underestimated. And while his victory came at a price, his courage exposed a truth too powerful to ignore. Racism doesn't always roar in the open. Sometimes it whispers in boardrooms, cloaked in rules about knowing your place. So the question remains, how many more voices must be silenced? How many more talents overlooked before we start to see the people we've been trained to ignore? Because Marcus's story isn't just his, it's a mirror, and the reflection it shows is ours.